Hi, it's Josh Goldberg here. In today's video, I'm just going to briefly touch on 5 of the most common responses from primary caregivers when they are not emotionally available and able to handle the emotions and the emotional behavior of a child. Now, from the age of around 1.5 onwards, a child starts to realize that they are separate from mother and they are a separate entity from their parents. Now, when this starts to happen, the child will start to experience emotions as an autonomous being, and they don't know how to label, to regulate, and to release these emotions yet. And the child will really learn how to do this based on the parent's response to the child's emotions and the child's emotional behavior. So the child will start by acting out these emotions, by throwing things, tantrums, crying, all of the emotional behaviors that we know. And how the parents respond to this emotional behavior and these emotions will subsequently teach the child how to process their own feelings. Now, if the parents of the child experienced trauma or emotional neglect in their childhood and they don't have emotion skills, empathy, emotional availability, effective communication, or if they're just not present for the child to be able to do this, then the child will subsequently be emotionally neglected. And this has a significant effect on the child's emotional processing ability, on their self-identification, which will greatly affect this person's adult relationships when they grow up. Now, when a child has emotions and they're acting out their feelings at a young age, if the parents are not emotionally available, they don't have emotion skills, or they have unresolved trauma themselves, they need to do something when the child is becoming emotional. And if they don't have the healthy approach, they will tend to insert one of the 5 unhealthy approaches that I'm going to mention today. Now, all 5 of these unhealthy approaches to dealing with a child's emotions are dysfunctional and they are traumatizing for the child. Okay, so let's get into these 5 common emotional dysfunctional responses that the emotionally neglectful parent will insert where they don't have the healthy emotion skills. As always, if you have a comment or your own experience that you want to share, please put it in the comment section. It helps other people to read different experiences. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our content if you want more of this type of material. Just before I get into the 5 dysfunctional responses, I just want to state at this point that the parents that are emotionally neglectful can be very nice and well-meaning people. This is not a derogatory rant towards emotionally unavailable parents. Normally, it's coming from parents that weren't given these emotional abilities in their childhood, so it's more or less a generational thing. Just wanted to make that very clear that emotionally unavailable parents doesn't mean that they're bad people. So unhealthy response number 1. So the child is having significant emotions, they're acting out their feelings, they don't know how to regulate their feelings yet, and the parents punish the child for this. This is dysfunctional response number 1. It could be that they send the child to their room as a punishment. They could isolate the child. They can even physically punish the child by spanking, hitting, emotionally punishing the child, name calling, anything that makes the child feel that you are a bad person for having feelings and acting out your emotions, when this is all the child is able to do at this point, and certainly they should not be punished for that. Unhealthy response number 2 is guilt tripping the child for acting out on their emotions and having feelings, making the child feel like that they're at fault for having these feelings, and the parent will make it clear to the child that I am losing because of your emotions and your emotional behavior. So obviously a child is not meant to feel guilty for having feelings, and this is when the parent will guilt trip the child. This can sound like something like, we're running late because of you, I can't do this because of the way that you're behaving and your feelings, or it could be something like, this is very detrimental to me. So this is giving the child a message that their feelings are an inconvenience and that they are a problem. Unhealthy response number 3 is stonewalling, silent treatment, and like a passive-aggressive response to the child's emotions or emotional behavior. This is when the parent will try and condition the child out of doing this by ignoring them, not responding to them. Stonewalling is basically long periods of time where there's no attention given or communication. And this is also very traumatizing for the child to have their emotions or their emotional behavior responded to in this way. Unhealthy response number 4 is diagnosing, where the parents will diagnose the child based on their emotions and their emotional behavior. So they might say things to the child like, you have an anxiety issue, you are a hypochondriac, you're just making a big deal about nothing, you're too difficult, you're too needy. All these different labels and diagnosis when the child is just having feelings and trying to act out those feelings and work out how to process them. And it's a very big problem when the parents diagnose the child for having emotions. Unhealthy response number 5 is toxic positivity and distracting. Now, I made a video on toxic positivity. I'm going to put a link to that video in the description, and I highly encourage you to go and watch that if you're interested. But basically, toxic positivity is when the parents will respond to the child's emotions and emotional behavior with positive connotative statements. Like, for example, oh, don't be so negative, we have to be positive. Let's be happy about this. Let's focus on the positive. Give it over to God. Let's be spiritual and positive. And these positive statements, even though they might be coming with good intention, they're not really being understanding and validating towards what the child is feeling. And even with good intention, it is emotionally neglectful. Now, distracting is when the parents will try and provide solutions, for example, like a distraction to the child when they're having emotions or emotional behavior. So it could be things like, here, do you want candy? Do you want to watch a movie? Here, take your iPad. How can I solve this? What do you want? And really the child doesn't want any of this stuff. And the child just wants to have their emotions to be understood and validated so that they learn how to do that. And providing solutions and distracting the child does create the habit of distracting. And this is where you'll see older people, teenagers, and even adults that will turn to, food, alcohol, sweets, junk food, distracting, social media, pornography as a way of distracting themselves from their own emotions. If the parent responds to their emotions like this in childhood, they learn this as a response. Now, if you experienced this type of situation in childhood with your primary caregivers, it can certainly be rectified through some self-work, through building emotional intelligence, emotion skills, emotional boundaries, working on thinking patterns, and of course, doing some inner child reparenting and healing work can certainly help one to overcome this state of self and the way that a person processes their feelings and connects to someone else's feelings in a attached relationship. So if you have any questions on this, please feel free to be in touch, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.